Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic Rush for the Nintendo DS. So, last time we've essentially manage to went into not only Zone 1, which appears to be Leaf Storm, and on top of that with Zone 2, which appears to be Water Palace, and yeah, nothing else I can really say about it. Although, apart from the fact that so far we somehow collected 2 Chaos Emeralds so far, so yeah, we're actually getting some pretty good progression so far. So anyway, today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to the 3rd zone. That's what appears to be Mirage Road. So something tells me we're going into somewhere of a pyramid, caves, or specifically a desert environment. So yeah, we can pretty much guarantee about the fact that we can able to actually go into, you know what I'm saying. And eventually at some point, about the fact that we might be able to try to get ourselves the 3rd Chaos Emerald along the way. So, although, I really love this music in the background because it's so gosh darn catchy. So to mind you about the fact that it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, but I'm really looking forward to able to, oh jeez, I totally forgot about this particular moving platform block right there. And this is where we come across into the forms of some sort of a gimmick right here, or in some cases, the majority of this stage is quite gimmicky. That's what appears to be about the fact that not only we can able to come across into certain rooms that basically, as you can tell, we must be forced able to actually just to destroy any of those enemies right here. Something very similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic Heroes, by the way, and also one time during the forms of in Sonic CD in Metallic Madness Zone. So basically, though, is about the fact you have to destroy all these enemies before you progress. So because of that, though, you have to get used to with this for this point, folks. Not only for the sake of the forms of this zone, but it's also with the other few zones as well. So we might have to try to get used to it. So because of that, though, and also I really love the actual sense of the forms of this particular background, if you couldn't tell, because it does kind of reminds me of a similar vibes as the forms of Pyramid Cave level in Sonic Adventure 2 almost. So anyways, there's the 3rd special stage right here. So of course, similar to the forms of how it does it in, let's just say, in Sonic Pocket Adventure, alongside with Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2, as well as Sonic Advance 3 essentially, you only get 1 emerald per zone. So because of that though, that could be also applied to the forms of Sonic Colors on the DS as well. That was also the forms of Sonic Generations for the 3DS as well. And I suppose not so much in the forms of Sonic Lost World on the 3DS. Well, that's just mainly because in Sonic Lost World on the 3DS, you can't able to actually get ourselves the forms of so many Chaos Emeralds during one of the levels, assuming of course you don't able to experience certain stages feels like a marathon of any sort. So because of that though, yeah, you get the idea what I was going to be saying about. And that could be also applies to the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, as well as Episode 2, which we'll get to those eventually. So because of that though, now speaking of which though, is about the fact that speaking of the forms of the actual Chaos Emerald color order, remember I said this before, is about the fact that the actual Chaos Emerald color order for this game in particular is going to be exactly the same as the forms of not only Sonic Advance, but also with Sonic Advance 2, as well as Sonic Advance 3. That was also applies to the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, not so much Episode 2, because it's more accurately going to match the exact same color order as in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, back in during the forms of in a Mega Drive / Sega Genesis. So because of that though, you know exactly what I was about to say. So, oh yeah, every once in a while though is about the fact that we might have to try to avoid as many of those spike balls as we could. And on top of all that stuff though, there's also going to be an enemy that's going to be appeared during the forms of in the 4th special stage eventually though. So then again though, we'll come across into that eventually. So because of that though, yeah, today's date of course is the 8th of May today, in some cases in 2024 today. So I believe, fundamentally speaking though, we've only got about 15 more days to go until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is definitely going to be coming. So because of that though, still I'm very excited for it, despite its controversial opinions about the forms of certain censorship, and on top of that with 30 frames per second as opposed to the original 60. and also with certain dialogue has been replaced, so you probably need the rest of it though. But I'm still basically excited for it because we are getting very, very, very close until that game is finally going to come out on the Nintendo Switch, so that'll be pretty exciting in my opinion. So anyway, speaking of which though, I found out there was actually some more review scores when it comes to the forms of Endless Ocean Luminous, despite the fact that I still haven't received that game, mainly because, well, it's not my type. So because of that though, still I'm basically, oh jeez, I totally forgot about these crushing blocks there since in Sonic Advance 3, so yeah, we got able to avoid those crushing blocks for quite a while. So as a result, it's been quite some time since in Sonic Advance 3 for the majority of certain zones in that game. Like for instance, there was one time in Journey forms of Rogue 99 or Route 99, and as well as the forms of Ocean Base, and you name the rest. So anyways though, and also something tells me is that certain Eggman's robots may look a bit familiar for those of you who ever experienced Sonic Heroes before. Like for instance, we've already come across into ourselves Egg Pawns, as well as the Egg Wizards type of enemies right here, and on top of that there's also Egg Hammer too. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting to see them in the 2D plane. So, and I found it was a little bit odd about the fact that the majority of the enemies in this game are actually entirely in 2D, whilst compared to Sonic, alongside with the forms of Blaze the Cat, they are both in 2.5D graphics. So because of that though, seems kind of strange honestly, but they look cool regardless of anything else. So because of that though, oh yeah, just like the forms of how it does it on Sonic Heroes at one point, that basically does sometimes Big Hammer decides they're able to have more health bars more than any other enemies. Whilst thankfully though, you can able to actually take down as many of those enemies with one shot, thanks to the forms of the actual boost. So because of that though, yeah, it seems pretty cool stuff. So now, as far as I'm aware, is that in both Act 1 as well as Act 2 in this stage, I believe we will come across into the forms of the very lengthy section at the end, which basically, as you can see, that we've somehow managed to get onto the actual specific platform right here, and basically though, this is all, autopilot or something like that. Although every once in a while though is about the fact that we have to avoid those rocks coming from the top screen, and every once in a while you do need to deal with the forms of some more enemies also from the top screen as well, so you have to pay attention to the forms of the drop shadow, so just in case you can able to finish off the forms of certain enemies. And thankfully though, the shields did somehow appear just before this particular segment, so because of that though, I will admit it though right away, it's actually very tricky to able to avoid certain rocks, specifically in this part right here. But regardless of everything else though, still, I really love the music in the background. As I said before, it is so catchy. So I think I highly recommend you're able to actually listen to the forms of... Oh jeez, I totally forgot about that. But there's a spring right here, so we can able to just get back on track. So either way though, and let's just finish off the level right here, because if you mess up with that trick at the very end, or specifically if you accidentally just trying to able to overutilize the trick system, and if you don't go for these dash rings at all, there's actually a bottomless pit down below, so we got to avoid that at all costs. So either way, what I still managed to get myself B all of a sudden, which I know for a fact that in order able to get an S rank when it comes to certain regular levels, I believe we need to aim for about, let's just say 100,000 points, whilst compared to certain boss fights, I believe in order able to actually get an S rank when it comes to the actual boss fights, you have to aim for about 50,000 points. So this means you have to be absolutely perfection, and on top of that, in order able to actually get ourselves a massive time bonus, is that you need to be super duper fast, because obviously as far as this game applies, it's all about speed and everything. Although every once in a while though, it's about the fact you have to do some very tricky platforming, so as a result that was actually the introduction to stop on a dime kind of control momentum. Although it does make sense in this game, whilst unlike in Sonic 4 Episode 1 as well as Episode 2, mind you, that it feels a little bit jarring to me, especially noticeable after experiencing the entire classic trilogy of Sonic classic games, alongside with the forms of Sonic CD as well. And yeah, we'll probably be able to actually know about that until what if we get into Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 and Episode 2, as well as the forms of Sonic Superstars if we still need to get around to it. So because of that though, just again before the events of the upcoming release of Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, basically. So because of that, though, we still have no idea about the forms of what that particular the trailer is about to be showing up eventually. Although I'm still really hoping that'll be the case, entering at some point later on. But anyway, yeah, let's get to the forms of this particular topic about the forms of Endless Ocean Luminous. More reviews have been shown up. Like, I think some Toy Sales has already mentioned about the forms of how the fact that IGN receives the game 4 out of 10, which is pretty poor, whilst meanwhile, in joining forms of other reviewers out there, to be more specifically, VGC, which, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it, VGC actually receives the game 3 out of 5, so it's not too bad, and as far as I'm aware, Vooks receives the game 3.5 out of 10, and meanwhile for Soliconia, I think it's what it says anyway, receives the game 5 out of 10, which is pretty much mediocre, and on top of that, Nintendo Live receives the game 5 out of 10, and meanwhile God is a Geek receives the game 8 out of 10, strangely enough, and on top of that, Nintendo Insider receives the game 7 out of 10, and there's also with the forms of My Nintendo News receives the game 6.5 out of 10, and on top of that, Open Critics receives the game weak rating, and finally, Metacritic score, when it comes to the forms of the scores overall, did somehow receive 66 out of 100. So because of that, though, yeah, I think it's confirmed to me, though, I don't think it's possible I can able to get that game, just because no matter what, though, I'm still trying to able to be focusing on trying to get the last batch of Mario games just before, well, to be more specifically, when it comes to releasing on a Nintendo Switch, all things considered, just before if Nintendo is going to be focusing on something entirely brand new at the time. So then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that we're still on the forms of May after all. So yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So also, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that during around that time, actually, is that I believe we've almost got 2 months left now until the Paris 2024 Summer Olympics is about to get started during at some point in the next couple of months, alongside with the films of the actual film's release of the films of Deadpool and Wolverine, essentially. So yeah, that'll be pretty exciting as well. So either way, though, oh jeez, I didn't have any rings left. Although I'm really hoping there might be a gold ring, which, sure enough, there is. So, that was a true definition of the close call right there. Because if I die at one point, I have to restart this whole entire progression again. So because of that, though, yeah, that's what I can really say about the forms of Mirage Road. Like, obviously, the music is so cool to listen to. Now, I will admit it though right away, is about the fact that, like I said before, that this entire stage almost reminds me of something related to the forms of Pyramid Cave from Sonic Adventure 2, except the fact it's on a 2D perspective, or should I say, 2.5D perspective or something, or it's hard to tell, because then again, it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, because obviously though it's about the fact that obviously Tiana, that basically she's still able to actually continuously play through Princess Peach Showtime basically, so anyways, here we go on to the next boss fight right here, and as a result, it's going to be Eggman Nega once again. Now, again, I was originally trying to able to mention about the forms of what their bosses' names were, but we'll save that until whenever we get to the second playthrough of the game, which involves around Blaze the Cat. So because of that, though, something tells me we need to able to keep on knocking the actual ball back, right back in the forms of this, whatever this is supposed to be. So anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that obviously someone said in the comments during the forms of our, well, true finale video for the likes of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, specifically the console version, mind you, that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, suffice to say, you guys even remember during the forms of about a couple of days ago that recently Disney decided able to release the, a teaser trailer for the sake of Mufasa the Lion King of all things, and basically what happens is that apparently though the comments has been blocked, and as a result, no matter what though, just to ensure for the fact that that particular film will not get too much negativity, because like what Piglet has already mentioned about this before, that there are so many dislike aspect ratio 24/7 for the sake of the films of that particular teaser trailer alone. because obviously though, nobody else seems to really care about it, myself included, because straight to the point, I'm still basically excited for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, basically. So, also I just realized about something is that recently, I've decided able to come back onto playing Sonic Dash recently. That's just mainly because, well, truth be told, I finally managed able to unlock the yet another unlockable characters during the forms within Sonic Dash, and this time I finally managed able to receive Mummy Knuckles, which as a result, because it's been quite some time since I was trying to able to unlock that particular character, because back then, about the fact I still really despise the character card system, just because not only is incredibly luck-based, but it's also a busy work when it comes to grinding. So because of that though, yeah, I'm still not a big fan of that particular system when it comes to unlocking characters, including level-ups, which I understand for its purposes, but it's just about the fact that it does feel a bit entirely different when it comes to unlocking things entirely, which it's hard for me to explain, but I do know for certain for one thing, is that obviously until next week sometime, that basically we might able to actually get a chance to unlock yet another character, which appears to be something related to Cream the Rabbit eventually. So yeah, that'll be pretty swell. Especially noticeable that I was really looking forward to able to unlock not only the next cosmetic character for Cream the Rabbit, but also with the forms of this very, very cool Metal Sonic version 3.0, eventually at some point later on in this month anyway, that is. So alright, so we're now down to this one last hit, and this particular boss is actually kind of tricky, especially noticeable because every once in a while though he likes to able to jump over the actual ball, but every once in a while though you need to able to act fast, so just in case you can able to finish him off for good. And there we go, that pretty much does it for Zone 3, which is of course Mirage Road, but of course this won't be the final time we get able to experience this stage though, because it wasn't until for later. So anyway, so let's see how well it did. I don't think it's possible I can able to get myself my glorious S rank for the time being, so let's just say I think it's actually okay. So because of that though, we'll take a B anyway. So anyway, so as a result, we've somehow got 3 Chaos Emeralds so far, so only 4 more to go. So as a result, I'm pretty sure we're now on to, like, I don't know, almost the halfway point in terms of the forms of Sonic story already. So gee, no wonder why this game is going way too fast all of a sudden, because it wasn't until when it gets to the point until in Sonic Rush Adventure that obviously though there's gonna be a lot of emphasis on, you know, well, we're probably not gonna mention about this right now, because obviously as you can see that we somehow managed able to pop over to see Vanilla. It's been a very long time, hasn't it? Since in Sonic Events 2, after rescuing you, after completing True Area 53 in Sonic Events 2. So yeah, it's been a, you know, very long time since we've last seen her. Well, technically for her cameo appearance for the likes of Sonic Events 3 after dealing with the true final boss. So because of that though, yeah, it's pretty nice to see Vanilla did somehow make its appearance right here. So, and I think the reason being for this is because she was wondered about the fact that if Cream the Rabbit was there. So because of that though, despite the fact that unlike in Sonic Events 2 as well as Sonic Events 3, that I don't think it's possible we can able to play as her this time around, because the main focus of this game is that you're able to play as not only Sonic, but also with Blaze the Cat, because that was the main selling point of this game, and not only that though, because of utilizing 2 screens, so like top screen and bottom screen. So either way, so that pretty much does it from that point. And now it's going to move on to the 4th zone, and that's what appears to be Night Carnival. This seems very cool, aesthetically pleasing, and yeah, let's just hop into this. And eventually at some points, the level design is going to get a little bit more exaggerated with the forms of not only for the sake of bottomless pits, but it's also with the forms of certain things we got able to avoid for the sake of time. So because of that though, man, I really love the actual background in this stage, and on top of that, the music is always super duper cool. And one thing you might able to actually realize about something is that if we get into, actually there's actually a special stage down there, which, have I got enough boost able to actually go for it? Oh, awesome! I've actually got enough boost gauge, so I can able to get into the 4th special stage. Nicely done. But anyway, because as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that, yeah, that Mufasa the Lion King teaser trailer that the comments has been now blocked. So this means we can no longer able to actually bring up the negativity going on when it comes to the forms of how this thing is actually going to be represented. So, but I'm still not going to see that film anyway, just because, you know, it still really blows, and on top of that, it actually ruins the entire magic what makes Disney so great in the first place, especially noticeable because obviously though, that I'm just so sick of and tired of the forms of those live-action movies at this point. Well, to be more specifically when it comes to Disney department, I mean, it's fine for the most part, especially noticeable with, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and even the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3, as well as the forms of Knuckles the series, as far as honorable mentions as far as I'm concerned, but still. And as you can see, we actually come across into that particular enemy right there that just shows up. And basically, you have to tap on him 3 times. So just to ensure for the fact that you can able to deal with him. And then once you try to deal with him, you can actually get yourselves 10 rings. So that'll be a pretty good ring boost as far as the forms of trying to get some more rings as far as I'm concerned. Because as far as I'm aware, certain special stages every once in a while is going to get a lot more difficult. So I'm sure we'll try our best if we not get hit too many times. So because of that though, and sure enough though, is about the fact that the actual length itself is actually going to get quite lengthy. Well, nowhere near is like extremely lengthy compared to the forms of how it does it on Sonic Colors on the DS, because as far as I'm aware, that particular game does have a 3-lap system. So because of that though, again, we'll talk more about that if we get into that particular version of Sonic Colors. So because of that though, I'm sure we're able to actually figure something out. So anyways though, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that generally speaking though, is about the fact that what I've noticed something is that we've recently received a brand new update for the sake of the forms of the actual DVD releases. So because of this though, June Part 2 is actually going to be confirmed to be released at some point in this month, specifically in May. And what day specifically, you may ask? Well, it's going to be releasing at some point on the 27th of May. So because of that though, I believe we've only got about, I would classify for saying, 19 more days to go until that film decides to come out, and not only on DVD, but also on Blu-ray, and even with the forms of 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray as well. So that's as far as I can be able to expect it for this point, despite the fact I still have not seen the film yet, although from what I've heard it was actually on Netflix. But as far as what Tiana has mentioned about this before, that it's kind of unfortunate that Netflix was actually going into a downhill again, especially noticeable because for the love of God, certain films as well as certain shows has been delisted. So because of that though, yeah, it feels like I'm just basically, you know, felt a bit disappointed with Netflix now, especially noticeable. Well, luckily I still managed to get certain films on DVD after all. Like for instance, as far as what Tiana, she already explained about this, is that obviously though, sadly though, that Ants is no longer accessible on Netflix, not only on the UK, but also in the US version as well. So because of that though, yeah, I can totally see why that Netflix is actually going to get a little bit more of a downhill statement. So because of that though, yeah, it's kind of sad though. But anyways though, also I just realized that particular sound you hear for a second, that was actually later reused in Journey Forms of It. There was actually a Mario game on the GameCube called Dancing Stage Mario Mix, or Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix. In Journey Forms of Here We Go music portion in that game, basically though, it's about the fact that early yesterday kind of voice clip was actually brought back into Dancing Stage Mario Mix. Although, what I can gather is that that particular game did came out first, mind you, just before this game does. So because of that though, yeah, it's hard for me to explain about that, but as far as I'm usually concerned is about the fact that for 2005 anyway, did able to actually get ourselves some pretty genuine good gaming releases back then. Well, some exceptions, mind you. But apart from those aside things, though, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that I just realized that Ape Escape is about to be celebrating its 25th anniversary at some point in, let's just say until next month or something. But either way, though, we'll have to discuss more about that if we get on to June at some point. So because of that though, oh jeez, we got able to avoid the bottomless pits every now and then. So either way, oh, that was it. Okay, I was expecting to be a little bit more lengthy, but hey, we did somehow complete this level no problem. But it wasn't so whenever we get to the later zones, there might be a couple of times that we might be able to come across into do or die situations every once in a while. Especially noticeable, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on trial and error sometimes. But anyways, let's move on to Act 2 in Night Carnival. And relatively speaking, that's as far as I can usually say about the forms of today's topic at this point. Although, there's actually technically one last thing I want to mention about, is that I believe we've only got about 3 more days to go until the next Doctor Who series is about to be coming. Specifically, Series 14, which involves around the 15th Doctor alongside with his new companion. So because of that though, I'm still a little bit optimistic to able to check that particular series out after the forms of somewhat disappointing specials, or in some cases though is about the fact that I have to admit it though right away, I'm not a big fan of the forms of the 13th Doctor kind of era, just because no matter what though, it just feels a bit, well, all over the place. Which, don't get me wrong, I still managed able to watch Doctor Who most of my time, especially noticeable while looking back and journey forms of the nostalgia memories for the majority of not only the 10th Doctor, as well as the 11th Doctor, because that's only mainly because I somewhat grew up with these two different counterparts of the Doctor in mind. So either way though, I'm biased I guess when it comes to comparing. Also I just realized that particular obstacle that we somehow get chased by is actually remarkably similar to the one we saw from the likes of in Leaf Storm, except it's now in a different color, so it's no longer in the forms of like black or grayish kind of color, so instead it's actually going to be like a purple kind of color, while trying to able to realize that, well, you get the idea what I'm talking about. So also, this place is filled to the brim with a lot of like light switches you need to able to interact with, like for instance while trying to go up, and also, you know, as I said before, we have to do like stop on a dime kind of movements until you're able to try to go through like pure platforming-esque. So because of that though, there's going to be a lot of times we are able to do something like this, until specifically in the later zones, you probably get the idea what I was trying to able to explain about this. So anyway, also I just realized about something, we actually got quite a lot of extra lives in this game so far, to be more specifically in Sonic's story so far. I mean luckily though, unlike the forms of how it does it in Sonic Events 1, as well as Sonic Events 2, as well as Sonic Events 3, every time when you switch off the game off, basically though your lives will be reset if you manage to switch the game back on again. Like for example, as soon as when I got myself like, I don't know, 7 lives or 9 lives in journey forms of not only in Sonic Events, but also with Sonic Events 2, as well as Sonic Events 3, that's basically though, if I accidentally switch off the game, and if I turn that game back on again, my lives counter will reset back to the forms of, let's just say, technically 3 lives, because when the actual lives counter reaches to 0, it's still actually classified for counting 1 chance left, just like the forms of how it does it in not only in Sonic Adventure, but it's also with Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and I believe also with Shadow the Hedgehog as well, I guess, and on top of that with Sonic 06, as well as the forms of some other Sonic games I can probably think about. Like for instance, there was also with, I would say, I don't know anymore, but either way though, that's as far as I can try to think about it. Oh, the majority of the forms of the 3D Mario games, I'm sure enough, with the only couple of exceptions being with the forms of Super Mario 3D World or something like that. So, I think that's as far as I'm guessing so. But anyway, so let's just go ahead and keep on destroying some more robots here, just in case we can get ourselves some tension gauge increasing. So, also every once in a while though, we have to go through these little dark rooms at one point, but in order to able to get the lights back up, you have to simply activate those specific, you know, light switches until you're able to... Oh, jeez! I totally forgot about these little, swinging contraptions right there. So, just gonna be able to press the left and right directional pad at one point, so just in case I can able to get, further distance with the forms of that particular swinging contraptions there. And wait for this thing to charge up and do some bit of tricks, and there we go. Act 2 is done. Also, I just realized it did took me about 4 minutes and 15 seconds or something. So, either way, though, it's actually quite lengthy, I'm not gonna lie. But that's just mainly because I do need to able to try to memorize the level design in this game sometimes. So, why do I still got the B, though? That's what I don't understand. I'm guessing in order able to actually get the S rank sometimes, is that you have to pull off not only certain tricks, but also you have to get yourselves the best time bonus. So, that's what I was expecting for this point. But anyway. Anyways, here we go, on to the next boss fight, and this boss fight is actually kind of fun in my opinion. So basically though, all you have to do in this boss right here is that you have to attack this thing right here, as you saw, until you're able to dip down Eggman Nega, so that way you can able to get a chance to able to attack him. Oh yeah, every once in a while though, this little weird turret enemy did sometimes manage to pop up, and you can able to actually use him to able to actually do a quick attack right at the forms of Eggman Nega, by the way, so that way you can able to actually get yourselves the benefit when it comes to deal with him much quicker, as you can see. So, sometimes he can be tricky at times, if only because of this forms of this ridiculous movement right there, and every once in a while though, you have to wait until when his electric decides to warn off. So, yeah, you gotta able to try to get used to it, the forms of a lot of emphasis on timing and all that stuff. And also I just realized that every time when you do get hit a couple of times, those rings scattered like too much. So as a result, we got able to be very careful of not to, you know, try to be so hasty at one point. So, and this is what gets really crazy during the forms of the final stretch of this fight, because obviously not only with this ridiculous movement, but it's also the reaction. It's actually going to be, well, tricky to avoid when it comes to certain attacks, but when you get the down of it though, it's actually not too bad, especially noticeable. Wow, I almost died for a moment, but luckily with that particular weird turret enemy, I somehow managed to able to deal with him with no time flat. And I believe that pretty much does it for Night Carnival. So yeah, it's a pretty cool stage, I'm not gonna lie. Especially noticeable, again, I really love the soundtrack in this game, which I was still able to recommend listening to it for the sake of the forms of high growth or something like that, which I think that's what it's called anyway, when it comes to the forms of that specific album. But even then, no, I suppose we'll try to explain more about that if we get on Friday, basically. So, and I believe we're now directly onto, I have no idea why it shows us a rock right there, but we'll investigate that until right now. So, I believe, fundamentally speaking though, we're now onto the halfway point in Sonic's story, basically. And also I just realized that the percentage is now gonna get a little bit higher for that particular, whatever that symbol was supposed to be represents. So, I think it's something tells me about the fact that the space-time continuum is about to expand a little bit. So because of that though, but then again, as soon as we get to the later zones, basically though, something interesting is about to happen. So because of that though, oh, look at that, we somehow meet up with the one and only, the Red Echidna, which appears to be Knuckles the Echidna. Well, except the fact that we can't play as him, just like Cream the Rabbit, as well as Tails, but that's just mainly because, as I said before, the main primarily focus in this game is obviously with both Sonic and Blaze, but I digress. And also I just realized, speaking of the forms of the actual percentage number, when it comes to the forms of the space-time continuum, is actually now onto 42%. So because of that though, yeah, you probably get the idea what I was going to be thinking about anyway. So again, I apologize if my commentary gets a little bit slightly iffy sometimes, because let's face it though, I've already explained well enough as it is, for the sake of the forms of today anyway. So even then no, I would have liked able to explain about the forms of something relates to the Nintendo Switch eventually though, but I'm sure not though that we'll let either me or Tiana will able to mention about the forms of something Nintendo Switch related during at some point in the next couple of days or so, but not now anyway though. So either way though, so it looks like we can now able to go into the 5th zone, and this is where the game starts to get a little bit more difficult at some point, because you know what exactly I was about to say. So with that being said folks, is that we got endings off right here. So join us next time for more Let's Play of Sonic Rush. It's that we're about to be going to the 5th zone, known as Huge Crisis, which does manage to take place in a boat of all things. So I'll see you guys until on Friday. Later fellas.